When she came into my life, my loneliness ended. And strangely enough, that same day, I slowly stopped being myself. It took me 3 years to truly understand which one mattered more. I'm Arthur Hale, and I'm 95 years old now. At this age, you begin to see things very clearly, not because life becomes simpler, but because you finally stop lying to yourself about what truly matters. And there is something I want to tell you, something it took me years to admit, even to myself. When I was 67 years old, I got a girlfriend. Everyone around me thought it was wonderful. My son told me I was doing the right thing. My neighbors said it was about time. Friends clapped me on the shoulder like I had achieved something great. They looked at me as if I had solved a problem that had been hanging over my life. And for a while, I believed them. I truly thought I had fixed something that was missing. But no one saw what was really happening. No one asked. And honestly, I didn't notice it myself at first. For 3 years, I woke up every morning at 5:30 a.m. That's an old habit of mine. At 95, your body still remembers the routines you built decades ago. Every morning, before I even opened my eyes, I felt something strange. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was quieter than that. A kind of heaviness that made getting out of bed harder than it used to be. I didn't know what to call it. I just knew something inside me felt smaller. And the strange part is this. The morning she left, I walked into the kitchen. I made my coffee like I always did. I sat down in my old chair, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt alive again. Back then, I didn't understand why. I'm not here to tell you relationships are bad. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just a 95-year-old man who learned something the hard way. And I would rather tell you now than have you spend years discovering it the way I did. But before I explain what I lost, and yes, I did lose something, you need to understand who I was before she walked through my door, because the man I was at 66 years old, I'm still trying to find pieces of him today. Before everything changed, my wife Carol passed away in 2007. Blood poisoning. From the day the doctors diagnosed her to the day she died. It was 8 weeks. 8 weeks to say goodbye to someone you spent your entire life with. The doctor told me it was quick. I suppose they thought that would comfort me. But grief doesn't care about the calendar. For the next 2 years, I won't lie to you, I was like a ghost. I would walk into rooms and forget why I had gone there. I would open the refrigerator and stand there, staring, unable to remember what I came for. The house felt empty in a way words can't really explain. Silence filled every corner. But eventually, something changed. I'm a retired electrician. For 38 years, I ran wires through walls and fixed problems with my hands. Electricians think in a certain way. When something breaks, you fix it. So that's what I tried to do with myself. Behind my garage, I built a workshop. Not a small one, a proper one. Solid workbench, pegboard for my tools. Good lighting. Everything a man needs to build something real. At first, I started small. A birdhouse for the yard. A step stool for my daughter. Then something bigger, a bookshelf. Then a dining table for my son. And slowly, without realizing it, I built something more important than furniture. I built a life again. The life that was mine. By the time I turned 65, I had a routine that belonged entirely to me. Every morning, wake up at 5:30 a.m., no alarm needed. Coffee on the back porch for 20 minutes, no matter the weather. Rain, snow, cold wind, didn't matter. Then, at 7 a.m., I walked into the workshop. And I worked, not because I had to, because I wanted to. I would work until noon, eat a sandwich, rest for a while, then go back out and build something else. Simple, quiet, peaceful. And most importantly, it was mine. I wasn't lonely, not the way people imagine. I had something better than company. I had contentment. But my son didn't see it that way. The day doubt entered my life. It started at Thanksgiving in 2012. We were sitting at the table when my son Thomas looked at me in that careful way people do when they're worried. "Dad," he said gently, "you seem lonely." I told him I wasn't. I told him I enjoyed my own company. But he didn't believe me. "You spend all day alone in that garage," he said. "That's not healthy." 3 weeks later, he called again. This time, he had a solution. "There's someone I want you to meet," he said. A woman from work. Her name was Diane. She was 63 years old, a retired nurse, widowed 4 years earlier. "Just coffee, Dad," he told me. "Just meet her once." I told him I'd think about it, the truth. I was already happy. But there was a quiet loneliness inside me that I never talked about. And slowly, the voices around me got louder. The pressure to not be alone. My neighbor Phil joined the effort. One morning at the mailbox, he cornered me. "Life's too short to be alone. Arthur," he said, "you should meet her." They all spoke as if I were suffering, as if my quiet mornings in the workshop were something I needed to escape. And this is where I made my mistake. I started listening. When everyone around you agrees about something, you start to wonder if maybe they see something you don't. You start doubting your own happiness. It sneaks in quietly. By January, I agreed to meet Diane for coffee. The beginning. She was warm, easy to talk to. She laughed at my stories. She asked about my woodworking. She talked about her grandchildren in a way that didn't make it boring. Driving home that day, I felt good. Maybe Thomas is right, I thought. The second coffee became dinner. Dinner became twice a week, and soon everyone around me seemed relieved. Thomas called more often. Phil nodded approvingly when he saw us together. And for the first few months, it really was nice. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not love exactly. Something simpler. Being seen. But something important was happening that I didn't notice yet. She wasn't seeing the real me. She was seeing the version I was presenting. The man who shaved every day. The man who made dinner plans. The man who asked thoughtful questions. But the real me, he was still waking up at 5:30 a.m., still walking into that workshop at 7 a.m. And soon, those two versions of me were going to collide. The small changes. The changes came quietly. Diane liked to talk in the mornings. Not small talk, long conversations, stories, thoughts, questions. By 8 a.m., she had already told me about her grandchildren, her neighbors, something she heard on the radio. I am not a man who speaks before 9 a.m. Carol understood that within 6 months, Diane never quite did. For her, silence meant something was wrong. And slowly, my mornings changed. Then my workshop changed. She would appear at the door around 10 a.m. "Just checking on you," she'd say. Then she'd stay. She asked questions. "What's that tool for? Is it safe? How long will that take?" They weren't cruel questions, but they broke my rhythm, my focus, my peace. So I started going to the workshop earlier. Then she started waking earlier. I wasn't angry with her. That's what made it difficult. She wasn't a bad person. She wasn't trying to take anything from me. She was simply there. And I had built a life that needed solitude the way lungs need air. The breaking point came one Wednesday morning. 3 years after we met, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. She was still asleep. I made my coffee and stood by the window looking at my workshop. And suddenly I realized something that stopped me cold. I didn't want to go in there anymore. Not because I was tired, but because I knew she would wake up soon, and whatever I started would be interrupted. So why start at all? I stood there while my coffee grew cold, and I asked myself something painful. When did I stop wanting to go into my own workshop? It had been over a year. Without realizing it, I had shrunk my life to fit someone else's presence. 2 weeks later, I ended the relationship. It hurt. She asked me what she had done wrong. I told her the truth. Nothing. She had done nothing wrong. The mistake was mine. Thomas was disappointed. Phil judged me. But the morning after she left, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. There was no one walking down the hallway, no one waiting for breakfast. I walked straight into my workshop. I placed my hands on the workbench, and I stood there for hours. Not because I had something to build, but because I needed to know I still could. What I want you to understand, listen carefully to this. If the people around you tell you that you must have someone, that being alone means something is broken, that your quiet life needs fixing, question it. Not because love is bad, but because company should never replace who you are. The fear of dying alone is real. I have felt it. But at 95 years old, I know something I didn't know back then. Dying alone isn't the worst thing. Living your final years as someone you don't recognize anymore. That is far worse. When you are truly yourself, your mornings belong to you. Your silence belongs to you. Your workshop, your garden. Your coffee growing cold while you think. It is enough. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. For me now, finally, it is enough.